individual questions. Let's start with the fundamental perspective. Why do women expect so much? Okay, so guys, I'm going to do what I often do and ask you to step back. I'm going to ask you to change the question a little bit, to start by looking in the mirror. We're not going to stop there, but we need to start there. So I want you to take a look at how your results in life, this is a mindset. So your results in life have been produced within the confines of your lenses and vantage point. So this is very important with regard to what kind of women you're attracting. So, for example, the results you've caused at work. Your lenses are the filters that cover your view of life. Okay, so some people's filter is life is rosy, and whatever happens, they see it as either a blessing or a learning experience or something that the universe gave them to make their life better. Okay, those are a pair of lenses, and they might have all the same experiences. They might live through the pandemic, they might lose loved ones, but through those lenses, they have a totally different experience than someone who has the lenses on called, life sucks and then you die. Okay, so if you keep on the lenses of life sucks and then you die, the pandemic is proof of that. Losing loved ones is proof of that. Any struggles you've had at work is proof of that. And what those lenses filter out is the positive experiences. Maybe you had a really special connecting moment with your loved one before they died. But for you, what this reinforces isn't that people are loving universally. No, that happened. But what it reinforces because of your filter is life sucks and then you die. And you have proof because for your relative, life sucked and then they died, right? So whatever your lenses are, filters out what you see in life. Okay, gentlemen, so what you need to take away from this is look for yourself and discover if you aren't also having a filter. So the practical application is, what is your filter about women? What have you decided is true? What lens do you look at them through? Based on your experience, of course, right? Like we know that men generally have a good reason for everything they do. If that surprises you, surprise, they do. I know a lot of men are very critical of other men, but from my perspective and my filter, I have seen this to be true. Okay, so your results in relationships with women have been produced in the confines of the lenses you're wearing and your vantage point. Let's talk about what vantage point is. So let's see. So if this is a mountain and this is your perspective, I'm just thinking of Nick Perkins. He's my fellow sign language interpreter, so he would appreciate this visual. Okay, so if you're standing over here on this side of the mountain and you're looking in the mountain and you're going, oh my gosh, like there's no way through, there's no water, I can't survive on that mountain. You're looking at it and you see what you see. Now, on the other side of the mountain is someone else looking this way. And what they can see is, a gorgeous lake that is miles wide at the base of the mountain with fresh water. What they can see is wildlife and trees. Now, which perspective is right? They're both accurate. They're both accurate. One of them says there's no water. One of them says there's a whole lake full of water, and it's great, clean water. So what I want you to understand is your experiences of women and your decisions about them and your biases towards them are limited by the lenses that you're wearing and the vantage point from which you are looking. Remember, so here's the mountain. Here's one vantage point number one, vantage point number two. Are we clear? Now, practical application, gentlemen. Let's see here. I just want to see who our participants are because I don't see anybody in the chat yet. So I think if I do this, I can see participants. Awesome. Jesse Campbell, welcome to the call. Okay, so Jesse, I'd love to interact, so make sure you put questions in the chat and interact with me over the chat, okay? Now, I want you to actually apply this to your real life. So this is those who are on the call live and those who are watching it after. If you want new results with women, you must be willing to change vantage points and give up the filters you have been using. Okay, is this making sense? And Jesse, this is where it's critical that I hear from you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I want you guys to have new results. I want you to attract high caliber women. That means they come to you. I want you to be winning with them and forming healthy partnerships that can last forever if you choose. Okay, all of that requires you to take off the lenses you're wearing and change the vantage point from which you are looking at the world. Okay, so let's talk about this. Changing lenses. Well, okay, I'm willing to change my perspective. That's why I'm in your Facebook group, Elizabeth. I'm here, I'm listening. How do I do it? Good, that's a start. That's a desire, okay? Now, the next step is owning the lenses you've got. So most of us end up with the filters that we see life through based on default, how our brain, like life happened and our brain made up these filters. And we're not even aware of them. They are literally the water we swim in. So life happened to you, Jesse, life happened to you. You've had whatever experiences with women you've had. And also, Lance, I'm responding to a comment from Lance that women show up for him with anxiety, sky-high ego, and no real accomplishment. Al, for you, you said women show up with decision-making problems. David, women show up expecting commitment from you when you are clear you're not in a commitment. Okay, so all of these are examples of what is showing up with your current lens. So I'm inviting you to own those lenses, own the biases that you have. So let's talk about how you would do that. So Jesse, I'm responding to some comments in the group, and I just want you to put an example of your experience with women in the chat if you would like me to interact with you and your lenses. I would love to do that for you because you showed up. Okay, now, for example, okay, Joseph says, women feel entitled to a man's time, attention, money, etc., without feeling the need to give much back in return. Okay, so what are your lenses, Joseph and Al? It's the water you swim in, so it's really hard to see them, right? So you literally, to change lenses, you need to own the ones you have. You need to say, okay, well, which part, here's how you do it. This is the magic. Here we go. You must separate your perceptions from what really happened. Now, guys, this is going to appeal to your logic. What I'm talking about is getting even more clear on reality, which might have the embarrassing aspect of you need to acknowledge you're not fully in reality. None of us are. There's no shame in it. But for men, I think you guys pride yourselves on, dealing with reality. And while you may be more connected to reality than women, it doesn't matter. You're still not in reality because of your brain is designed to live inside your experience. Okay? So I created an entire video on what this looks like. You must separate your experience, what went through your filter, that's your experience, from what actually happened. They are completely distinct. So for example, Joseph has dealt with women who he felt were entitled to his time, attention, work, and money. Now, if I were to say, Joseph, but what actually happened? That was your interpretation. She felt entitled, or maybe she even said it. Let's say she said, I'm entitled to your time. Now, women don't talk like that, right? But she probably acted like she was entitled to your time, attention, work, money, etc. And your experience was she didn't give a lot back. Okay, good. That's just your experience. I need you to be able to set that to the side. What actually happened? Those are the facts that if a fly on the wall saw them, it could acknowledge, yes, check, check, check. For example, what happened was she texted me 18 times yesterday at work after I told her not to text me at work. That happened. She texted me 18 times. My interpretation, she feels entitled to my attention. Do you guys see it? Jesse, do you see it? Please let me know if this is making sense. To me, it's clear, and I want to make sure it's landing with my audience. So something happened. For example, maybe she texted you 18 times, and I don't know what it was, so I'm making up a theoretical example. And Joseph made up, she feels entitled to my attention. Now, if you can separate those, you can choose a new pair of lenses. So that's the magic. Now, Jesse, either you're going to give me something to do to show as an example if you want me to interact with you. Yes, great question. Jesse says, okay, I want a new point of view. How do I get it? So Jesse, I am literally walking you through the process right now. In other words, take notes. Oh, you're such a brilliant note taker too. You're like the note taker in the group. Like, I love the comments that you give. Okay, but I am literally handing you the process. Okay, this is gold, what I'm telling you right now. First, you have to separate what happened from all of your perceptions, opinions, decisions, judgments, everything. Just what happened. Let's say you went on a date and she never talked to you again. What happened was I went on a date and then I texted her, I called her, etc. That's all that happened. To even say she didn't respond to me is a story. What is true is, like, what didn't happen was her sending you any messages that opened on your phone. That's all that happened. To say she ghosted me is a story. To say she wasn't interested is a story. So it's not that any of those are wrong, but you must separate them from what happened. No interpretations, no drama. That's the first step. Good. That is, and then you own the lenses. Okay. This is a very advanced process. So I highly recommend you guys hire a coach, hire a mentor. We have a program for gentlemen where we keep you supported and walk you through this because this is very intense work. Now, once you've separated what happened from all of your interpretations, again, very unlikely for you to succeed on your own, but this is the process. Now, you can own the lenses. I made up that she's entitled. I made up that she even wants my attention, right? That's an interpretation. So there might be an equally valid other interpretation. Maybe she was having an anxiety attack and what makes her feel better is to like send texts out. And that's why she sent you 18 in one day. We don't know. All we know is you got 18 texts from her and you made up she feels entitled to your attention. That's it. Now, if you separate those two, own what you made up. Own what you made up. This is step 2. I chose to make up, and this can be hard because you guys did not consciously choose this. Joseph did not sit down and go, you know what I'm going to make up about women today? I'm going to make up that they feel entitled, and I'm going to resent them for that. I'm going to make up that they want my time, attention, work, and money, and that they feel they should have it without giving me anything in return. No, he did not make that up consciously, and neither did you. So, but you still have to own it. Sorry, that's what your brain ended up with, but you have to own it as standing in 100% owner for your life, which is a critical shift you have to make before, Jesse, before you will attract high caliber women. You have to take 100% ownership of everything in your head and even everything out of your head, but that's kind of advanced. We're not going there today, okay? But everything you've ever thought, made up, you own it, whether you meant to or not. So Lance, what have you decided about women or certain women that you've gone out with that was from your head? You just want to own it. Don't make it wrong. There's nothing wrong with what you made up about women. You made up that they're dealing with anxiety. And again, she might have said, I deal with anxiety. And then she might have had some behaviors like maybe, let's see, I guess I need examples to give you guys real coaching on this, right? So something happened and Lance said, Women bring anxiety to the table. Maybe he had 3 dates in a row that never call him back, and they text saying, I'm sorry, I'm just too scared to go out with you. Who knows what happened? Something actually happened in reality, and Lance made up. Women deal with anxiety, and they have a sky-high ego, or some of them have a sky-high ego and bring no real accomplishment to the table. So Lance, you got to break those apart, and you've got to own your view. Next step, this is so good. And Jesse, I saw your comment. I'm coming right back to it. The next step is, what are you willing to give up? So if you're willing to give up one of the pairs of glasses you're wearing, that makes space for you to have a new one. This answers your question, Jesse. How do I get a new point of view? How do I change my vantage point? Okay, now there's a difference. We talked about lenses. They limit what you see, and your vantage point limits what you can see. They're two distinct things. We're talking about filters and lenses right now. Okay, so Jesse says, the filter I'm wearing is, I made up that women view their men with less compassion than other beings in their lives. Good. Now, Jesse, do you see that something happened? Maybe you had a girlfriend and you were having a hard day, but she was, speaking with a lot of energy, and you made up she's angry and she doesn't have compassion on me. Maybe that happened. And then maybe that same day, you saw her speak very kindly to someone on the street who was having a bad day. And you made up, she has less compassion for me than other people, right? Something actually happened, and then you made up, women view their men with less compassion than other beings in their lives. Now you've owned it, so you already did step 1 and step 2, great work. Now, step 3, are you willing to give up that decision about women? Whatever you made up in your head, you can give up. What really happened, you only give that up if you're being delusional. But you can give up all of your interpretations about it. You can give up everything you think you know, because you only know it inside your head. Giving up what you know is so magical. I got trained in that in a course from a company I highly, highly recommend. Landmark Worldwide. Their first course is the Landmark Forum. I've done a lot of training with them. But in one of their communication courses, they teach you giving up what you know. Because what we know only exists in our head. And when you decide you know someone, or you know even a fact, it limits what you can see. You now have to see through the filter of the fact that you know. So if you really want to see reality with no filters, you have to learn to give up what you know. But that's another really advanced topic. Back to, if you want to manifest, if you want to have women that are realistic, appreciative, that are grounded, show up in your life, you must change your filter. So how are we doing, Jesse? Do you see it? The next step is, what are you willing to give up that you've made up? He says, I'm so glad you said, this is so what everyone else is thinking, Jesse. It would be easier to replace it if I had evidence to the contrary than just give it up. Yes. And the problem is, if you make your filters based on evidence, they're always going to be limited to what you can see. You don't want to do that. It's not the most powerful perspective. And let me explain what I mean. If you know, I can see that the world is flat. I have personal experience evidence for it. And then someone shows you a picture of the world taken from a spaceship or a satellite. And you can see that the world looks round. There's evidence for both perspectives. It's very not powerful to base the filters you choose on evidence. You want to base them on the truth. So what are the basic truths that we know about women, Jesse? So, in other words, choosing to let go of what you've decided. By the way, your filters protect you. They protect you from being responsible. So it is very hard to give these up, gentlemen. Step 3, give up what you've decided about women. Not an easy task. Absolutely feasible. Jesse says, see the water on the other side of the mountain. You've had people your whole lives telling you the other side of the mountain. but you've made up the filters you've made up based on your experience and to shelter. Your brain made them up. Like, I don't want you to make yourself wrong, but your brain invented those to help you survive. You've had people on the other side of the mountain saying there's water over here. You know, maybe they're already married and they're like, there's lots of good women out there. And you're like, bullcrap, where? Right? It's because you're not on the same side of the mountain as them. You're not seeing through the filters that they're seeing through. So if you wait for evidence, you will constantly be at the effect of the limited experience you have. Let's identify what we know is actually true. What happened? What really happened? This will help you give up those lenses. So Jesse, what happened that you made up that women view their men with less compassion than other beings in their lives? Something actually happened. So guys, if you take a look at what had me decide this. So Al, what had you decide that women struggle with decision making? And then what we're going to do is we're going to just separate it out from what really happened compared to what you interpreted. When you identify that what you've interpreted isn't reality, it's a lot easier to let it go. You don't need evidence to the contrary because you can see, oh, that didn't really happen. It was just in my head. So I'm going to share an example, and then hopefully Jesse will share an example. Please, Jesse, that I can actually respond to, because in the comments that I'm responding to, I did not request a specific example of what happened. I just have the interpretations on the other side of the filter. Okay, so let's see. Oh, when I was married, I had my husband said something to me. He said words, but he said something like, I knew you were trying to manipulate me with that book, and that's why I've been withholding sex. Okay, I had read a book, and it was like, you know, basically, if you give your man more sex, then he will XYZ, right? And so it was a kind of manipulation. Like, I was trying to make him happy, which is a kind of manipulation. And he called me out. He's like, you know, you were trying to manipulate me with that book, and so I've been withholding sex. So I was like, so I decided what that meant was he doesn't really love me. And that filter blocked my vision of him. Can you see that would completely shut down? Like, everything loving he did after that meant nothing, because underneath it, he really didn't love me. That was the truth I looked at him through. So guys, if you look at your women through the truth that they struggle with decision making, they have anxiety, they have a sky-high ego, they feel entitled to my time, attention, work, and money. If you look at them through that filter, you will not see the real them. Take the coaching. And I had to discover that I made that up. It had nothing to do with his love for me. He was just trying to protect himself from being manipulated. He was literally he made up that I was trying to manipulate him, although I can see the truth in it. That wasn't my intention, right? But I can see his perspective. But at the time, I didn't. So he made up that I was manipulating him and he was going to defend himself by withholding sex. And I was like, oh, he's just protecting himself against, you know, a threat. He saw me as a threat. And that's all that happened. He felt threatened. He defended himself. That's all that happened. Had nothing to do with his love for me. And his love for me also had nothing to do with my self-worth. I was also equating those, right? In my head, in the distorted filter I was using. So that's an example of separating. What happened was he said words and didn't want sex. What I made up was he doesn't love me. And therefore, there's something wrong with me. Okay? You can see that was not a helpful filter. So setting that aside, there's no drama when I look at, oh, he just felt threatened and defended himself. I would have done the same thing, right? With his filter, if I had his filter, I would have done the same thing. So in that way, now I have compassion for that. Like, I got it. I'm really sad that he felt threatened by me. I care about how he feels and how he felt even. So that's an example of taking those apart. And then once you see that you made it up, it's not real, and you give that up, then you only interact with what happened. This is step 4, Jesse. I'm saying Jesse because he's on the call, which therefore he's my hero of the day. He gets Elizabeth points. To be fair, you guys didn't get a lot of warning, but I do love it when you come to my calls. So anyways, when you have just what happened, step 4 is you just interact with what happened. So like, for example, my fiance left me for another man. Okay, what happened? I was engaged, and then I wasn't engaged anymore. Excuse me. And she said words like, I'm going for Francisco over here, or whatever. So that's all that happened. What you made it mean is, I'm not good enough. I can't keep a woman. There's something wrong with me. Women don't find me desirable. You made up all this stuff. But all that happened is you were engaged, and then you weren't. That's all that happened. Now, when you get to that amount of clarity, and you only interact with, okay, I was engaged and now I'm not engaged. What can I make that mean about life? I'm pretty desirable because a woman agreed to marry me. That's what that means. I got engaged. Okay, good. I'm good at enrolling women in spending their life with me, because I know that because a woman already agreed to marry me, even though there are plenty of better options out there. Okay? Do you see how it changes everything? And then you just interact with what actually happened. So the next step is changing your vantage point, which we're not going to discuss in this video because it's already been almost 30 minutes. So tomorrow, I'm actually doing like a part 2 of this video. So today I wanted to talk about how you guys can stop women from expecting so much. And that has to do with addressing what they expect out of your mouth when they say it or when you think it. So for example, the minute you notice a woman feels entitled to your time, like maybe she says some assumptive thing like, we're going out next Wednesday, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, so you're making up all these interpretations. She said, we're going out next Wednesday, right? And you're saying, oh my gosh, she feels entitled to my time. Now it's your job. You're the man. And this is masculine energy that sets boundaries. You're the man, and your job is to say, wait a second. Did you say that because you think I'm supposed to spend every Wednesday night with you? Like, I don't understand the question. And she might be going, I didn't have a question. I just had it on my calendar. I had you down for next Wednesday, and I just wanted to verify that appointment. Maybe she says that, and you're like, oh, okay. No drama, right? Or maybe let's assume she actually feels entitled. So she says, we're spending next Wednesday together, right? And you're making up all this big story like, oh my gosh, she feels entitled to my time. And your job as the man is to stop the action and go, wait a second. What, you think I'm supposed to reserve every Wednesday night for you? And worst case scenario, she's like, well, yeah, we've been dating for like 3 weeks. And you know I love dancing on Wednesday. Now your job as the man is to stop the action and go, sweetie, that's not how I operate. In fact, I feel disrespected. I'm experiencing being disrespected by you right now because you didn't ask for that time. You assumed I'm supposed to spend it with you, and that really doesn't work for me. Do you see it, guys? So, own your interpretations. Only interact with what actually happened. Get curious. Does she really mean that she's entitled to it? Ask, find out, investigate. And stop thinking that everything in your head is true. It's not. It's all made up. I say that to tease you, right? I know you think it's based on evidence, but there's lots of other contrary evidence that you're not seeing because of your filters. Okay? All right, this is this video requires a massive amount of responsibility in order for you to take it on. So Jesse, I want to acknowledge you, our one live participant, for taking it on enough to actually do the work in the call. And gentlemen, if you find yourself angry or resisting this, it's because you're doing it and your brain doesn't want to give it up. Yep, I said that. If you find yourself angry about the content in this video, or like, oh no, that's not true, I have evidence. If you find yourself defending your filters, just know that it's okay. You just might not be ready for new results yet. The universe is still waiting for you to open up and be ready for these women to show up in your lives, because you can't see them yet. So the universe is like, I'm not going to send them, because all he's going to see is entitled no matter what, or all he's going to see is decision making, or whatever your filter is, right? For Jessie, all you're going to see is that she doesn't have as much compassion for you because you've decided that about women in general. So the universe withholds what we're not ready for yet, and it's waiting for us to prepare. It's waiting for us to, and if you believe in Heavenly Father, is what I like to call my God, right? So if you believe there's a benevolent higher power out there, and even if you don't, you can try it out and prove that, this does work. Waiting. And as soon as you're ready, it can allow those things that you desire to come into your life. But if you're defending old beliefs, old views, you're not ready. And that's okay. I still have compassion for you, and I understand. There's been times when I was defensive and I wasn't ready. And there's certain things I'm still not ready for, to be honest. I just started a coaching program and it's kicking my butt. I'm really looking at what I'm not ready for yet. And it's a lot of things I think I want. So that's what I had to say today. And Darren, you're on the call. Welcome to the call. So whoever's on the call live, this is the moment when you can ask questions about this. Maybe you can't see your lenses. Like Jessie, you did a great job identifying them. Maybe Darren, I'm just going to tease you here. Maybe you have no idea. Like you're like, I don't have any judgments about the world. Like I don't have any opinions. I just see reality, right? Some people really honestly want to hold on to that identity of my view is accurate. I can relate, and I have empathy for that, unfortunately. So when I lean over here, I'm looking at my comments because I got a new mic and it's like blocking my comment screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Jessie, what I see is that you saw the victimhood in it. You're right. This mechanism of our brain and using filters protects us from having to be responsible for our own life and our own results. So it's by turning our frustration outward. Women are whatever, less compassionate. Women are high maintenance. Women are, and while all of those might have a morsel of truth, we can't actually use the truth for our advantage because we're so stuck in our own filter. Okay? Like it is true that parts of the earth are flat, but we can't use that to our advantage if we're stuck defending, no, the earth is round. It's like, yeah, the earth is round too. They're both true. Okay, so no, saying the opposite of what you believe is the same thing. So Jessie says, is one way to break down the filter just saying the opposite of what I believe. Like he said, women are less compassionate towards their men than other beings in their lives. So the opposite would be they're more compassionate with men than other beings in their lives. No, that is equally unhelpful. So what's critical is that you actually separate what you made up in your brain from the physical reality outside of your head and only interact with reality. So you don't make this wrong, the stuff you made up in your head. You don't react to it. You don't try and fix it. By the way, gentlemen, while I can appreciate your desire to solve problems and fix things, there's nothing wrong with that desire. It's awesome, very manly. But that drive might happen when you see this stuff. Like, I got to fix it. I got to fix myself. That's not the answer. You actually want to accept it with compassion and set it to the side. Like, oh, I made up women are entitled. Set it to the side. And now you can be with me, Elizabeth, or whoever the woman in front of you is. You can discover, like, oh, wow, that filter really doesn't work with Elizabeth. She's not entitled. Or maybe you had the filter that I really am entitled, and you can find out who I really am. Okay, so Jessie says, like letting go of balloons. Well, yes, so let me explain the process like this. If you separate reality from what you made up in your head, rigorously, you let go of all your interpretations, okay? Then what you made up in your head, if you want to let it go, you can tie it to some imaginary balloons and literally just release it. Like, it's okay. And it's like peaceful, like you're not shooting the balloons, right? It's a peaceful acceptance. Oh, I just made that up. It's actually not significant. It really isn't. It just was a brain pattern running, an electrical current in your head. That's all that happened. Okay, did that make sense? And the reason I've been doing these on YouTube is because the interaction with the chat is quicker. There's less of a lag than on Facebook. And I really love showing visuals, so I may start doing some of these on Zoom. Okay, so Jesse says, so for example, would I disbelieve in the validity of my interpretation? Part of me wants to go, yes! But it's not like the validity. I want you to disbelieve that what you made up is the truth. What you made up is actually valid. It's just not helping you right now. It is limiting you. So there's a distinction there, okay? So before, anything you made up before this moment, most of us by default, think that like, that's the truth. This is a busy street. That's the truth. No, it's not. This is just a street, right? This is a street, and I made up that it's busy because I saw 14 cars in 1 minute, okay? If we let go of our interpretations and don't make them wrong, it's like they're valid, but they're not the truth. There are let's just be realistic. There are about 7 billion valid points of view on the planet, but there's only one truth. And I don't usually bring religion in because a lot of our group isn't religious, and you don't have to be in this group. So let me just share something personally that isn't relevant to what's required. So look at it this way, or excuse me, don't look at it this way. This is how Elizabeth looks at it. There's only one truth. That is God's perception. He perceives everything accurately. And he is the only being that perceives everything accurately. Therefore, I can always trust that my view is limited and not totally accurate. That's how I interpret, or this is how I apply this to my life. I do not assume that my view is the same as God's. I don't even assume I understand what God says. I assume that when he says something, he understands it, and I understand like this much of it. So I try to apply it to my life, but I stay open-minded. Like there could be 100,000 more accurate interpretations of what he says than what I think he meant. Did that make sense, Darren? Did that make sense, Jesse? Okay, so it doesn't matter if you believe in God. You can apply this to your life anyway, although I do recommend it. I mean, check it out. It's a pretty benevolent principle. But if you don't, you can still apply it to your life from the perspective of there's 7 billion valid interpretations of life. How could any one of them claim to be more accurate than the others? But theoretically, from the universe, there is one true perspective, and it's not ours. So therefore, the way you guys can get new results with women applying this concept, like it's a beautiful, deep concept, but I love practical results, okay? The way you get new results is by only dealing with what is so. So you ask a woman on a date. Let's say you've been texting her and like, hey, let's go get frozen yogurt. And she's like, I'm busy. Now you make something up about it, right, Darren? You're like, oh, she's not interested. But that's not real. That's just what you made up in your head. So now you only want to deal with reality. She said she's busy. How can you get curious about that? Well, what is she busy doing? Maybe she's up to big games in the world. Maybe she's like a freaking awesome entrepreneur and she doesn't, or maybe she hates frozen yogurt, or maybe she likes to have her evenings to herself and she only goes on dates in the morning. And you can ask her, when you said you were busy, first I made it about me. And I was like, oh, she's not interested. But then I realized I have no idea what's going on in your world. Can you tell me about that? Like, do you rather date at a different time? Am I someone you don't want to go on a date with? And you could literally check in with her in a vulnerable way. Do you see how this would be very open and vulnerable? And you will freaking blow her feminine mind. Why? Because nobody talks like that. We're like, who is that? When you guys stand out like that by being super real, it's amazing. Okay, so part 2 tomorrow on changing our vantage point. And what would thrill me, Darren and Jesse, is for you to actually go apply this to a specific situation today. So for example, if you had a recent breakup or within the last 100 years that you're still hurting over, separate your interpretation from what happened. Only interact with what happened as an experiment. You don't even have to give that up forever. Like maybe you want to stay brokenhearted. Some of us do. But just interact with what happened for a minute and then tell the group what you got out of doing the exercise. That is my request. There's going to be a lot of resistance to this concept. There's already been a little bit of resistance to it in certain comments before I did the video, you know. So what I would love is some experiential sharing of, oh my gosh, I applied this and this is what happened. This is what I saw newly. All right. I adore you both. And everyone else who watches this, thank you for sharing with us. And we'll see you on our next live video.